Russian forces launched a combined strike on Ukraine. Everything was flying. Zircons, Iskanders, Shaheds, ballistic missiles. Basically, everything the terrorists had, all of it was coming at us. Right now, half of Kyiv is without heat and water. Most of the city is without electricity. The Chornobyl nuclear power plant has lost power, and there are problems at other nuclear power plants as well. What happened? What are the consequences? And are we really on the brink of a crisis? Let's figure it out together, friends, in this episode. Please like this video, or better yet, donate, because the Russian terrorists need to be held accountable for what they're doing. And so, as not to waste your time, let me get started right away. So, Russian forces have carried out yet another combined attack on Ukraine. Kyiv was hit, and in general, both Kyiv and the Kyiv region were targeted. Right now, these are the most problematic regions. Also affected were Dnipro, Vinnytsia region, Chornomorsk, Poltava region, Rivne region, and other areas. The enemy used, well, practically their entire arsenal, as I mentioned at the beginning, the supersonic anti-ship missile Zircon. It's unclear, honestly, why on earth, they even tested or used it at all, as well as the Iskander ballistic missiles. In addition to that, Kasta-1 missiles and hundreds of attack drones were also launched. Kamikaze, those very same Shahed drones. The main target, of course, is the energy sector, more specifically to deprive Kyiv of electricity, heat, and water. This is a deliberate act of terror against the civilian population. What did our air defense show? Out of 372 enemy targets, 342 were shot down or suppressed. That's 315 out of 339 drones, 14 out of 18 ballistic missiles, and 13 out of 15 cruise missiles. Zelensky stated that Ukraine received the necessary air defense missiles just one day. Think about it, just one day before the attack. And this made a significant difference. I can't even imagine what would have happened if we hadn't received those missiles from our partners. The cost of repelling this attack using only air defense missiles is about 80 million euros, says Zelensky. That's the price of our safe skies. Well, as safe as one can imagine right now. However, 5 missiles and 24 drones still hit targets at 11 locations, and debris from intercepted targets fell on 12 more sites. And the consequences are catastrophic, if I can put it that way. Why is that, friends? Because, as you can imagine, the most difficult situation right now is in the capital. The strike mainly hit the left bank. Let's break down the consequences point by point. First, human casualties and destruction. Dnipro district, here. A high-rise building was damaged by the blast wave, and a person was injured, a 59-year-old woman who is currently in the hospital. About 20 cars were damaged by debris, and a primary school building was also damaged. So basically, they're hitting schools and everything else. Darnitsky district of Kyiv, windows and the fence of a private house were damaged. Desnyansky district, there too, drone debris fell on the territory of a cemetery. Right now, our situation with heat and water is catastrophic. Well, let me not use the word catastrophic, but it's definitely serious. Heat first. After the attack, 5,635 apartment buildings in Kyiv were left without heating. Over 5,000 friends. People are literally freezing at minus 15 degrees. That's almost 80% of the buildings where heat had been restored after the previous massive attack on January 9th. It was so difficult to restore that heat, and now again, minus 80%. The CEO of Yasno, Serhiy Kovalenko, says that about half of the capital's housing stock is currently without heat at all. Those are his words. The water situation here is also bad because almost the entire left bank, Desnyansky, Darnitsky, and Dniprovsky districts, has been left without water supply. But the right bank is affected too. In Troishkina, for example, the water is running at reduced pressure. There are problems in the districts on the right bank as well, particularly in Shevchenkivsky, Solomyansky, Holosivsky, and Pechersky. There is no water, even though some reports claim there is. In Pechersky, yes, there is no water in the Pechersky district. In fact, the city is now split in two, not just by the Dnipro River, friends, but also by its utilities. So what about energy and transportation? An additional 173,000 customers are without power on top of the emergency outages. The metro is operating in emergency mode with changes and long intervals between trains. For example, between the Livoberezhna and Arsenalna stations, trains run only once every 25 minutes. This is the main transportation artery of the city, as you can imagine, and it is paralyzed. It's winter now, below zero, snowing, ice, and so on. The local authorities simply can't cope, and here the roads can't be cleared either. So naturally, the metro is under enormous strain, but even the metro isn't working because Russian terrorists have done everything possible to make sure it doesn't operate. Against the backdrop of this emergency situation, as you can imagine, the conflict between our mayor, the wonderful mayor of Kyiv, Vitaly Klitschko, and President Zelensky is escalating. Because Klitschko can't think of anything better than to go and blame the district heads for the fact that Kyiv hasn't been cleared of snow and ice, And he threatens to appeal to the president because, as he says, he is unable to influence these district heads he appointed. A Kyiv city council deputy, well, in previous episodes, I talked about the conflict between Zelensky and Klitschko. But tell me, why is that? Kharkiv, for example, even though it's a frontline city, somehow manages to prepare for winter and for shelling, but Kyiv can't. And in Kharkiv, no one blames the central government. I'm not trying to defend anyone. I'm just genuinely curious. Why is it like this? How is this even possible here? So, Kyiv City Council deputy from Servant of the People Yevhen Kuzmenko sarcastically thanked the city services for their work, saying that he slipped on the ice and suffered a spinal fracture. It's impossible to walk the streets of Kyiv right now. Kyiv residents and visitors to the capital know this. If you walk even 100 meters somewhere, you'll fall 3 times. So, cases like what happened to this deputy actually happen all the time. This is just one example. It became public only because he's a deputy, so the media started writing about it. And here, there's a mess going on. They can't figure out who should take care of the city. So maybe you shouldn't be appealing to the heads of district administrations, but instead give orders and get all this sorted out. After all, you're the head of the city. According to the media, Western embassies in Kyiv received warnings the day before about the highest level of danger, a red alert. That is, this attack and probably the next ones are intended to plunge Kyiv, as stated in these instructions, into a blackout, a total blackout. What we have now isn't even a blackout, friends. It's a total blackout. When nothing is running, nothing is flying, there's no water, no electricity, and so on, for 3 to 5 days. Why? To force an evacuation from the capital. That's what the Kremlin is counting on. According to media reports, embassies have received this information. Diplomats have already been given instructions regarding water supplies, food, backup power sources, and so on. Now let's go through the regions, because not only Kyiv and the Kyiv region have suffered, friends, but other regions as well. Bucha district in the Kyiv region, a 50-year-old man was killed there. 2 gas stations were damaged. In Dnipro and the region, an enterprise was also damaged. There was a fire, debris damaged houses and cars, and 2 women were injured. Elderly women. The region's air defense shot down 40 drones. Chornomorsk, Odessa region. As I already mentioned, a drone hit a multi-story building and energy infrastructure was damaged. Vinnytsia region. A critical infrastructure facility was hit, but there were no casualties. Cherkasy region, air defense destroyed 4 missiles and 1 drone. Rivne region. Damage to critical infrastructure. Over 10,000 subscribers are without electricity, and windows in houses have been shattered. Poltava region, there was a strike on an industrial facility and several fires were extinguished. Sumy region, Kharkiv region, the outskirts of Kyiv, due to network overloads, implementation of emergency power outages. In reality, some of them were partially cancelled on the right bank, but overall, since January 9th, we have been living under emergency conditions. These power outages, so whether they cancel them or not, hardly anything changes here. Now, friends, let's talk about the most significant and alarming news. And I would like to tell you about it because, listen, it actually concerns not only Ukraine's security. According to IEA reports, a critical incident occurred during the attack. First, the Chornobyl Nuclear Power Plant lost all external sources of electricity. These sources power the spent nuclear fuel cooling systems. Second, the power lines connecting other Ukrainian nuclear power plants were damaged. So it turns out that all the nuclear power plants have been affected. This means a serious deterioration in the safety status of Ukraine's entire nuclear energy sector. Nuclear power plants require stable external power for their safety systems. Of course, there is internal power. Right now, they're operating on internal sources, but without external power, they won't be able to run like this for long. Russia is once again playing this nuclear roulette. Russia is doing this deliberately. And over there in the West, they're just keeping their mouths shut and saying nothing. You understand? Here, the IEA just came out with a single statement, a mere acknowledgement, and that's it. Where are those people who are now gathering in Davos, enjoying their red caviar, sitting around with girls, flirting? Has any of them said anything? Zero reaction? A city on the brink of a humanitarian crisis, 5 million people, and still zero reaction at all. Just imagine, could all these games of theirs with nuclear safety ever end? So friends, what do we actually have as a result? Look, Kyiv and a number of regions have found themselves in an extremely difficult situation, close to a humanitarian crisis. These are not my words. I'm saying this right away so you don't start writing things. In the comments, these are the words of experts. And this is a systematic strike against heating, water, transport, and the energy security of a city of millions in the middle of winter. Russia's goal is clear. It's not a military objective, it's a terrorist one. To demoralize civilians, to make people freeze, to leave them without the basic necessities for life. So that people take to the streets, block roads, like they do in Sumy, in Kryvyi Rih, in Odessa region, near Kyiv. Why go far to look for examples? Kherson, look at how people live there. Someone comes out, blocks the city, while others are in the trenches like our soldiers and so on. Someone is always blocking something. Honestly, it's just childish. I really don't understand these people at all, but actually, friends, there's another context to consider. I believe that if the world allows Putin to freeze Ukrainian cities with impunity, believe me, sooner or later, similar attacks could happen directly on European soil because unpunished evil only grows bolder. This is no secret to anyone. They've already had Shaheds. Well, not Shaheds, but other drones. It has already happened. You remember what went on in the summer. In the end, let's put it this way. We've already seen. And this time, we will overcome everything as well, for sure. Yes, it's hard, but it requires us to unite, to be resilient, to help each other. There's no other way, and without blocking streets and roads, because it's not Klitschko who's shelling us, no matter how I feel about him, not Zelensky, no matter how I feel about him, and not anyone else. Neither Filatov nor anyone else. It's Russia and Putin who are shelling us. Channel your energy into donations instead, not into blocking streets. Thank you, friends. Halls?